You're watching PowerNation.
Today on Detroit Muscle, Roadburner gets a shot at being immortalized as a piece of miniature Mopar memorabilia.
Plus, we hit the road for a MoParty. Hey guys, welcome to Detroit Muscle. You know, when it comes to old Roadburner, this thing oozes the name on my shirt.
For sure. I mean, just take a look at this thing. Cool stance, Hemi power, TKX 5-speed with the pistol grip, and of course that cool patina finish that you just can't buy because, quite frankly, well, that's Mother Nature's handiwork right there.
When we pulled this Plymouth out of that shipping container, we knew what we had was a diamond in the rough. That's what I'm talking about.
How about it?
That looks more in my price range for sure. She was structurally sound and just needed a few goodies to get it back out on the road.
We stripped her down to bare bones and put in a trick front K-member and rear axle assembly to handle all the new horses she'd be pulling.
We brightened up the engine bay and dropped in a 6.4 liter 3rd gen Hemi with a TKX 5-speed, all commended by that pistol grip shifter.
We also added some new shoes, rejuvenated her finish, and did a complete interior restoration to finalize her metamorphosis into a lean and mean street machine.
This car definitely turns heads. It grabs plenty of attention, and we've got a few compliments on it. A while back, we had some friends of ours fly in and they wanted to check this thing out. They deal in some cool cars, except for theirs are on a little bit of a smaller scale, if you will.
Hot Wheels started in 1968, right? It was kind of a direct response to the fact that there really wasn't a die-cast vehicle toy at that time that performed well, right?
The idea of coming up with a car that could perform well and look exciting, I think, was the challenge that drove Hot Wheels to become what they were.
Elliott Handler, wanted to create something that would really be fun to play with. And as the story goes, they hired a car designer from the car industry, and they hired a rocket scientist, from the aerospace industry. And between the two of them, they came up with this amazing line.
And they came up with using torsion bar suspension with Delrin bushings, putting a little thin rib on the inside of the wheel for low rolling resistance. And then the cars themselves were pretty much inspired from Harry Bradley's '64 customized Chevy El Camino. He used to park it out in front, and Elliott Handler would see that car, and it was bright yellow, and it was chopped, and it had, like velocity stacks sticking out from the hood, and it had mag wheels and red line striped tires, and all those types of elements were applied to the original 16 Hot Wheels. So you look at them, they have Spectraflame paint, they have engine details. Most of them have a moving part or a feature, whether it's a removable surfboard, opening engine hood, stuff like that. They look great and they perform great. I mean, we had track sets that came out so they could do loops and jumps and stunts. It just took the world by storm, and it caused everyone else in the industry to have to follow and try to keep up. Even other competing toy companies came and went with lines of die-cast cars that pretty much mimicked Hot Wheels.
And when they first laid that first prototype in front of Elliott Handler on his desk and rolled it across the desk, the thing just zipped across the desk, and Elliott Handler says, "Now those are some Hot Wheels." And that, as the legend goes, or as the story goes, that's how the name of the brand came about.
I've always wondered how these guys take a car from this to this. And we recently got to find out.
Well, Brendan, after months and months of work and a lot of labor, Project Roadburner is finally complete. What do you think?
This is amazing. Love it. I've always loved the 68 through 70 Roadrunners. I mean, they're just so cool of a car. The hood off with the nice Hemi engine, the tunnel ram, the dual quad setup. I mean, this thing is just, you'd see it from a mile coming.
What kind of details and features do you see at first glance that you think would look great in a Hot Wheels car?
The engine is the first draw. I mean, visually it's so contrasting from the flat black paint. And then of course it's physically just popping out. That's what you draw your eye to.
And that's kind of what we were going for when we designed the car initially, is we wanted that engine bay to be the first thing you see walking up to the car, and I think we hit the nail on the head. And the fact that Hot Wheels is even considering making Roadburner into a die-cast car is truly an honor. How do you envision the final product looking?
To make this as a Hot Wheels in 1/64 scale, I mean, we'd have the body, I would do an open engine bay there, and then if it were me, I would make that engine part of the interior and then do that whole thing chrome with the bumper and the grille and the back bumper, so that as they sandwich the parts together, you know, that'll just come down and nest, and then you'll have this nice big chrome engine sticking up like that. Because when you're walking through the aisles in the store shelf, looking at all these crazy shapes, colors, forms, because you know all these Hot Wheels cars have graphics on them and stuff, but then you've got this flat black with chrome engine sticking out. I mean, that in itself is going to be very visually contrasting, and it's just going to draw you right to it.
So how complicated is it to capture the stance of kind of like our Roadrunner in the little die cast? Because that has a lot to do with the curb appeal.
Oh, absolutely. It's not difficult to capture a rake stance. The trick is, with Hot Wheels, we have a performance element to them. You can make a car that looks nice, it could sit on the ground, but it doesn't really roll, it doesn't go down a track, a launcher, a booster. You know, it's a very short overhang in the front, and then of course you have relatively flat sides already and a flat back end. So those are all great elements for a performance car already. So I think it would do okay, so we could still capture that stance.
What about getting you to sketch out some of the features of this thing? You think that would be possible? Yeah, we could do that. All
right, let's do it.
Coming up, things get sketchy as our bird gets blueprinted. Well, Brendan, we got a little bit of an art supply store here for you.
Yeah, you
so
did. Nice.
You go crazy, kid.
No pressure here, okay. But yeah, the idea, a 4-part car, so we'd have, you know, the body on top. I'm thinking about this, I'm not drawing the whole car, but thinking about it exploded. So the real trick is up in the front, because we would have this area open. What I would have to do is have the core support in here and probably the radiator detail, because we have a spin post that comes in the front. So from a manufacturing perspective, this is like a tapered post here with a little bit of metal on the end. So when they manufacture it, they'll sandwich it together. So it would look something like that. And then next in the process would be the wheels, because those are pre-manufactured parts that we have. You have nice skinny wheels in the front. Fortunately, we make skinny wheels in Hot Wheels. And of course, we have some nice large wides that we put in the back too, because you gotta have big wheels in the back, right? So the larger wide wheels are gonna have a shorter axle in the back because the wheels themselves are wider. So this one would be a little bit wider because they're both gonna be tucked in underneath. And then, you know, beyond that, then we have the chassis. So because we have the bumpers here, the chassis only needs to cover just the remaining portion. So it's not a whole lot. You know, that basic body, you know, the window, the interior, chassis makes a 4-part car.
And then from here, we have kind of the paper design. Does it go over to the computer after that?
Yes, from this, I mean, we would want to capture this car in 3D, have a digital sculpt of it. So that would be like the next step, is to come up with a realistic looking 69 Plymouth Roadrunner.
Well, we have a big fancy computer here. Would you mind showing us that process as well?
Sure, let's do it.
All right.
All right.
So what does it take, as far as the process goes, to go from a real live car to a 1/64 die-cast?
Fortunately for us, what we want to do is we want to capture the car in 3 dimension in the computer. So we happen to have, fortunately for us, we had an existing 73 Trans Am that was already done, so it was a little bit easier to modify. So this one, we took the hood off, put his engine in there, put all that crazy tubular roll cages that he had in front, captured as much of the detail of that car that we could, getting that to look just like his real car. And the one thing with 1/64 scale, you know, we want to exaggerate the details, because if you just take everything and literally shrink it down, most of that stuff gets washed away. All the little cut lines, you know, like between like the door cut lines, any of that stuff gets so thin. You need to blow those up bigger so that they still read at 1/64 scale and it looks like that real car. So Then we give them all the other technical information for making that a parted out car. So from that, our partners will take that information and they'll come back to us with a parted out 3D model. So we can print it at work. We have 3D printers there. We can review this stuff at 1-to-1 scale. So, looking at it, it's like, you know what, that detail didn't come out right, or they have to change things to make it manufacturable. Just because we want it a certain way, they might not be able to produce it. So it's a back and forth on that. Once we're happy with that and they approve it, we approve it, then they cut steel, parts are molded. Now we can check for fit and finish the details. And it's like, well, you've got some molding flash here, this gap is wrong, this detail got missed. So we'll do that, we'll check for those things. At that point, our graphics team will come up with the deco, what they call on an E-sheet. And of course, the packaging team comes in, they take care of their part with the illustration, the copy, all that information that goes on the package until we have a final product.
And what's crazy too, after putting this car together, it's funny how people who haven't seen it per se, but they walk up to it and after a couple times around it, they're like, that's kind of like a grown-up version of a Hot Wheels. When they say that, I just think back of myself playing in the floor with cars of the same situation.
We all, I think, have a similar story. I mean, as a kid, I had Hot Wheels, I'd paint them, the old Testors model paints. Now I'm building new ones for the next generation.
Up next, we go plumb crazy for a classic ride. The Plymouth Roadrunner has been a staple in the muscle car industry since they were introduced back in '68. The sole purpose of these things were to go fast and to be easy on the wallet. Now, just like its cartoon counterpart, it was light, nimble, and quick. And the main basic options on these things were all performance.
They were fast out of the gate, but quickly fell off the cliff and faded into obscurity, along with the death of disco. But that planted the seed that made this majestic Mopar indeed a rare bird, and it catapulted this iconic piece of Detroit muscle into the Automotive Hall of Fame as one of the most prestigious performance vehicles of all time. By the late 1960s, muscle car mania was in full effect. But many models started redlining away from their roots as fast and cheap. Plymouth set out to build a back-to-basics muscle car that could run 14-second quarter-mile times and sell for less than $3,000. The result? The 1968 Roadrunner.
Built on the same B platform as the Belvedere, Roadrunner only offered options that were essential for improving performance.
The B bodies are excellent about handling. They drive really, really good and ride good.
While Hemis and 446 packs were available, the standard 383 packed plenty of punch to ruffle the feathers of Ford and Chevy lovers. Chrysler paid 50 grand to Warner Brothers to use the name and likeness of their famed cartoon bird, and then spent another $10,000 to develop that famous meep meep horn.
The Roadrunner was a runaway hit and paved the way for a host of other character-driven Mopars. This 1970 model brought a new rear and front end styling to the basic '68 body. It had a grille with vertical fins and a bumper with integrated turn signals. The body lines were smoothed out and the just for show side scoops were molded into the rear quarters. Options included a towel rack rear spoiler, but it was beefed up brakes, suspension, and power that pushed buyers' buttons. The addition of that air grabber hood was just icing on the cake.
If you're trying to outrun a wily competitor, you better have a lot of airflow to the carburetor. So, with the flip of a switch, a vacuum servo raises a functioning forward-facing scoop, complete with terrifying teeth and coyote air cleaner.
This mean-looking, tire-twisting cartoon car was good news for budget-minded performance fans. The bad news? More and more Roadrunners stayed roosting in showrooms, until sales dropped way down in the early '70s.
People can't help but react when they see these rides out in the wild, leaving a trail of dust as they travel down the highway. With a roaring exhaust and a ready-to-pounce stance, This 1970 plum crazy Roadrunner wasn't worried about being caught by a cunning coyote anytime soon. And if you're lucky enough to spot one, take a picture because these rare birds are an endangered species. A plum crazy 70 Roadrunner is one of my personal favorites, and that's the great thing about Mopar. There are many different styles and tastes for all kinds of palates.
So if you're into A bodies, E bodies, B bodies, you name it, if your flavor's Mopar, there's a party out there that will tickle your fancy. And you better believe that this thing had a VIP spot.
Coming up, we're gonna MoParty like it's 1969.
Hey guys, we're in Bowling Green, Kentucky at Holley's MoParty. And it's easy to say that these rides are all about Detroit muscle.
That's right, we love a car that makes a statement, but this one right here screams it.
It's battery powered.
Yeah, it's got a battery in it.
Right here, that's where you plug it in at.
The whole neighborhood flickers when I plug it in, but
Right. Good news is that once you charge it fully for like a week, you can drive it for probably about 45 minutes. Yep.
if you get charged up looking at Dodge, Chrysler, and Plymouth products of every make and model from the past 60 years and beyond, then Holley's MoParty is going to send shockwaves up your spine for anyone who is a fan of all things Mopar.
Hey, we're at MoParty today, Holley's MoParty. Just like all of our events, we're here to have a good time, thus the name MoParty. This is just a celebration of everything Mopar. 80s cars, 70s cars, new cars, trucks. We've even added Jeeps this year. We got an off-road course that we started last year. We've expanded to have a Jeep experience.
Glad they wet the track.
We do autocross, we drag race, we do burnout contests, rock crawling. The Dodge Thrill Rides are here giving rides to people in their Hellcat powered machines. Anything and everything powered by a Mopar engine is welcome. We're just here to show all of our consumers that love Mopars of any kind that we love them too, and we have parts for them. Even if you're not a Mopar guy, just come get a taste for car culture. There's always a common bond and a common thread. And besides that, who doesn't like cars sliding sideways and going 200 miles down the drag strip?
Well, we just walked up on the Survivor tent, and I have to say I'm thrilled to see this thing. Wing cars always grab attention, and it snagged mine. This 69 Hemi Daytona may be one of the only unrestored Dodge wing cars you'll ever see. Not only is it considered the holy grail of Mopars, but this ride could be considered the Babe Ruth rookie card of muscle cars. With only 39,000 miles on the odometer, it's been stored in a garage for the last 45 years and making a rare appearance at Holley's MoParty.
If that Hemi Daytona is the king of Mopars, this Coronet 500 might just be the Duke of Dodges. This is Pumpkin, a 1970 Hemi Orange 318 automatic convertible with white interior. Like any Survivor car, only belts, hoses, and brakes have been replaced to ensure the car is safe to drive.
This numbers matching 1970 Dodge Challenger TA sports a 340 pack with a 4-speed transmission and a pistol grip shifter. She only has one owner, 47,000 miles, and purchased Labor Day, 1976.
Now, I'm typically a muscle car guy, but the novelty of this 96 Indy 500 Ram definitely caught my eye. Not your typical Survivor, this special edition pace truck started as a 1500 SLT and was later upgraded to a 5.9-liter V8. As many of you know, doing a frame-off restoration is a lot of work, but it can almost be argued that maintaining a Survivor can be just as daunting of a task. If you thought those Survivor cars were rare, take a look at this cherry 1971 Plymouth Cuda. Don't worry, if green isn't your thing, they also have one in red. It has a 426 Hemi under the hood, along with all the cool and stylish hot rod goodies you'd expect on a true piece of Detroit muscle. Just be sure to bring your checkbook because these babies aren't cheap.
This is where it's gonna be awesome. This off-road part is pretty sweet, man. I don't know if you noticed. I'm so excited. The best part, this thing's free. Now, walking around the swap meets, one of the things I enjoy the most is finding tools, because you never know what you're gonna find.
And you can almost do an entire episode on all the weird stuff we got in our toolbox.
Yeah, these are some fancy fingernail clippers here.
Whew. You're gonna need them for your toes. I know how nasty yours are.
Dan is stellar on the tree yet again. 003. 641, 7 out the top.
Most of us love going fast, grabbing gears, and doing smoky burnouts at any chance we get. But if you aren't fortunate enough to have a Hellcat engine at your disposal, MoPartiers can get a chance to sit down, buckle up with a professional driver, and live out their fantasy as a tire-slinging stunt driver. Pro tip, don't eat before you jump in this vomit comet, because these guys are gonna push this ride to the limit.
You know, Joe, MoParty is always a good time, and having Road Burner here, well, that's a multiplying factor. Think about this, bud. We have the opportunity that Road Burner may actually become a Hot Wheels.
Dude,
What do you think?
just thinking about little 7-year-old Joel laying in the floor, playing with Hot Wheels, to think that one day that little dude would grow up to build a real life one. It's a dream come true, buddy.
Absolutely.
Let's go get something cold to drink.